How's it going, everyone? My name is Logan Kilpatrick, and I'm super excited to be talking about diversity and inclusion efforts in the Julia community. I currently serve as the community manager, so I'm sort of just presenting a lot of this information in aggregate. And I'll note initially that most of this work, if not all this work, has been done by other people within the Julia community. Again, I'm sort of just presenting a sort of aggregate picture of a lot of these different diversity and inclusion efforts, and also just providing some more like statistical updates as far as some of these numbers go. So definitely huge shout out, and I'll try to get some individual shout outs in there as well for all the folks working on these specific projects. But yeah, definitely not a representation of all of the work that I've done individually. It really is the entire Julia community that's been pushing these initiatives forward. So we'll really quickly just talk about what's happened in the last year. I'll give some background on Google Analytics, and then we'll dive into the specific analytics for a few of these different websites and things like that, looking at the comparisons from my presentation that I gave last year at JuliaCon, and then looking at the numbers this year as well. So really, again, excited to present this information. And then again, at the end, I'll sort of give some final thoughts as far as what we can do to continue to improve things, and perhaps what someone watching this can do to contribute on some of these fronts as well. So what we've done, I think this has been and I was taking a minute and just thinking about all the stuff that's happened in the last year, and there's been a ton of development that's happened in the last year as far as initiatives that I think, and this is just highlighting a few of them, initiatives that I think are sort of helping push forward the notion of diversity and inclusion in our community. So one of the ones that I'm super excited about is the launch of an introduction to Julia for nervous beginners on Julia Academy. So that course just launched a few weeks ago and already has 1,000 students signed up. So I think as far as adoption of Julia goes, and making sure that we're making Julia an accessible language to everybody, I think that course is going to be super important in the long term as far as that goes. The other thing is an avenue to contribute to the Julia community and to get students involved continues to be Google Summer of Code and Julia Summer of Code. So in total, we have around 39 students working across a bunch of different organizations working on Julia projects this summer. So that's super exciting, and I think that in general, it's also the most diverse group of folks that we've had so far. So again, another sort of premier example of things hopefully going in the right direction for the community. I'll also call out the Julia Inclusive initiative that was started by a bunch of awesome folks in the Julia community. So that's definitely something to take a look at Julia Inclusive on Twitter, and there's some Discourse posts that I have linked in this presentation as well. Definitely take a look at that, and that group and that initiative is specifically focused around gender inclusivity in the Julia community. Another thing that I'm super excited about is the Google Season of Docs project that's underway right now. So we have a technical writer and a technical writer mentor that are working on this project, and the idea is that we're going to create this sort of all-encompassing contributing guide for the Julia ecosystem, not specifically the core Julia project, but the entire ecosystem. So if you're interested in contributing to Julia, no matter where you sort of are in your technical adventure learning about Julia and all those sort of things, there'll be a sort of a way for you to get started and contribute and make meaningful contributions in the community. So I think that will have a super long tail important impact on the Julia community. The other thing is the Julia D&I working group, and this is sort of the name that I've given it, but perhaps there's a more accurate name for it. But again, after JuliaCon last year, there was a BOF, Birds of Feather session, which was just talking about ways that we can improve diversity and inclusion in the community, and a lot of folks after that conversation got together and sort of created this working group. So we've been meeting sort of regularly over the course of the year and sort of just working on these different initiatives, whether it's localization, code of conduct things, moderation, a bunch of different initiatives, and sort of just, it's a group of people who care about diversity and inclusion and want to make contributions on this front. So I think that's been awesome. And then the other thing that I'll call out is the beginner AMAs that Huda has been hosting and organizing. I think have been a super important contribution to the community, and something that will definitely continue into the future. Again, I'll make my disclaimer like I did last year in this presentation that Google Analytics might not be 100% correct. So you sort of actually see this divergence a little bit in the Julia survey that goes out every year. Those stats a lot of the times actually don't match up with our Google Analytics stats, so it's something to keep in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. There's definitely a margin of error in some of these numbers that I'm presenting. So if we look at the Julia language site last year from a demographic standpoint, you can see what some of these demographics look like. The specific numbers on screen, we're going from something like 12% in 2019 female users to 17.7% female users in 2020, and then now going into 2021 we're looking at around 20.7. So you can see the jump from 17.7 to 20.7. So again, I think these are positive growth metrics and something that I'm excited about. I'll also, again, because I didn't make the disclaimer yet, I'll make the disclaimer that Google doesn't have a way of representing non-binary users or perhaps people who have a sort of less traditional representation of their gender. So I think it's something important to call out. So these numbers might not be, well, they're definitely not representative of those folks. So important to make that note. And it was a question that came up at last year's session as well. If we look at the countries in which Julia is being used in, you can sort of see what the demographics. Obviously, there's a heavy use in the U.S., but a lot of other places as well where Julia is being used extensively. If we look at Discourse last year, going from 15% in 2019 to 19.3% in 2020, all the way to 21.8% in 2021. So again, positive growth in that direction. If we're taking a look at the documentation, I think this is one of the most compelling situations where we went from 12.4% in 2019 to 17.7% in 2020, and now in 2021, 22.3%. So again, super positive growth, and I think this is the sort of trend that we're going to see across a lot of these metrics.
So for Julia Academy, we're looking at around last year it was something like 19-ish%, and this year on Julia Academy, we're looking at around 21.7%. So again, some positive growth, and I really do think that Julia Academy will be one of the sort of premier places that we can sort of reinforce this idea of making Julia an inclusive ecosystem and language. YouTube, not seeing a lot of change. So this was last year. We were right around 5% on YouTube, and we're still around 5% this year. So definitely somewhere where we need to put some focus in and trying to get these numbers a little bit better. And again, this might actually have something to do with the difference in the way that the analytics work on YouTube. It also could be reflective of reality. So that part is not super clear to me. The takeaway, positive trend line. I'm excited about this. I think, again, we're moving in the right direction. Obviously, we're not moving as fast as we want to be, so we're putting a lot of thought and effort into this. There's a lot of things that can still happen, a lot of things that we can do to make this sort of a better trajectory for the entire community. There's a few things that folks can do if they want to get involved. Join some of these working groups. If you're from an underrepresented gender, join the Julia Inclusive Working Group and get involved in that initiative. If you sort of want to just contribute generally to the diversity and inclusion of the ecosystem, join the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group that's out there. Feel free to ping me. I'll get you added to that. And then if there's sort of higher level things that you're interested in being involved with, send us an email. Talk about it in the diversity channel on Slack. We really need the community to have buy-in in these initiatives and to push these things forward. It can't be sort of a few individuals in the community sort of pushing all these initiatives. We really sort of need the broad support of everybody. So if you're, again, interested, whatever the initiative is that you think would be helpful, get involved, let us know, and we're always happy to help out. And that's everything. Thanks, everyone. Take care, and hopefully this helped.